Hello and welcome to the DPDL Talent Development Podcast, brought to you by Dash Square. It's been an amazing few months for the team at DPDL. We've now launched our leagues in two cities, Bangalore and Mumbai, and it's been really exciting seeing the action in both cities, seeing players and coaches develop through our platform. In today's episode, we've got a very special guest. He's a former football player and a coach who started his career as an academy graduate from Leeds United in England. He went on to establish himself at some of the biggest Premier League clubs throughout the 90s, the likes of Man City, Chelsea, Everton, Crystal Palace, Fulham, and a few more. He's an FA Cup winner, having beaten the great Liverpool teams in the 1988 FA Cup final with AFC Wimbledon. He's got a very unique connection to India. If you are a football fan that watches the UEFA Champions League, you've definitely seen his face on TV, on Sony Sports. He's also been the head coach of the Kerala Blasters team in the Indian Super League, and currently is working as the technical director at South United Football Club in Bangalore. I've had the pleasure of knowing him, interacting with him at the DPDL League where his teams took part, especially at the under 13 and the under 15 level. And trust me, he is absolutely passionate about grassroots football, about improving coaches, and just taking Indian football forward as well. I'm delighted to welcome.
I wonder if Naeem will knock on the dressing room door. What a run here by Phelan! Brilliant! Brilliant!
Terry Phelan on today's episode.
You're talking about the teams there. I forgot actually who I was for a minute then. I thought it was somebody else, but no, I mean, if you look back over my career, I get goose pimples because, you know, when we talk about football as a whole, it's not just about, you know, going on a green field or a sandy field, you know, or concrete. It's about everything what comes with it, you know, the parents, the fans, the clubs you played for, right down to the backroom staff, the dinner lady, the tea lady, the washing lady. Everybody's involved in it, especially at that elite level, you know. Obviously, when I was growing up, I grew up in a place between England and Ireland, you know, travelled between the countries. Mostly done a lot of me growing up there in Manchester, a place called Salford, a city within a city. Salford, a real big affluent area for Manchester United fans, not so much Manchester City fans, and we'll have a little bit of I put a smile on your face actually. So, you know, from me growing up, and what did football mean to me? Why did it mean so much to me? What was the scene in it? What was I getting out of it? I think for me personally, it was a sense of, you know, escape. A sense of going out into the streets, learning something different, learning something new. I was a little bit of a shy person anyway, but football gave me that sense of belief. It gave me that different direction. So, you know, I didn't mind going out on the streets, and I'm on about streets where, you know, it was just like here, you know, hitting a ball against the wall. And it's true, we'd hit the ball against the wall for hours and hours and hours without boredom. I think nowadays, you know, you do passing exercises with the kids nowadays and they get bored of it. You have to come up with something new all the time. But that's how society's evolved. Regarding going back to myself, hours and hours and hours with a football. You know, how did I get into football? Well, I got thrown into goals. My brother, Terry, we're on the streets. There's a chalk, in them goals, there's the wall, you got to dive about. And I didn't relish that, to tell you the truth. I was a little bit... my size is not the biggest, so I thought, no, I need to be outside, you know, as a field player. And, you know, my brother Tony says, okay, then I'll learn you a little bit. But watching the game and all, give us that sense of belief. Watching world superstars. Now, don't forget, back then, you know, in the 70s, there wasn't a lot of football on TV. Match of the Day was on TV, and we'll get around that. Match of the Day was on TV. I think my first match I really seen was the 1976 FA Cup final between Manchester United and Southampton. Right. And I'll get to why I wasn't a Manchester United fan anyway, to tell you the truth. Remember what I said, Salford, big red area.
That's a controversial one
already. So basically, you know, from that, watching the 76 Cup final, Southampton, Manchester United, I felt that enjoyment from the fans, from the players, you know. Obviously the games evolved from then, and that was at the old Wembley. And then I watched the 78 World Cup in Argentina, you know. Ozzy Ardiles, Ricky Villa, you know, Kempes, you know, all them legends, Daniel Passarella, who played at the back. And I just fell in love with it, the great Brazilian sides, the great Peruvian sides then and all. And I thought, this is the way football should be played. Yeah. I'm getting goose pimples now. I love the way, the flair of the Brazilians, the Argentinians, and I love that style of play, and that's how I wanted to play. And I had my legends, and then watching Liverpool growing up a little bit and all in the 70s, and Leeds United. So I thought to myself, that's how I want to play football. Yeah. That's what I want to do. And I was left-footed anyway, so it was a little bit different. And it just gave me that sense of belief. If they can do it, I can do it, you know. And I didn't need anybody around. I didn't need a coach around. Yeah. It was just my self-belief of going out there, kicking that ball against the wall for hours and hours and hours, dribbling it to school, dribbling it back from school, hours and hours. They say we're about 10 hours. Is that right? 10 hours of footballing hours, which I probably got them, you know, them hours in anyway per day. Yeah. You know, I had them hours in, more than 10 hours a day. I was kicking a ball around all the time. And I think if you get your hours in, then you become better. But do you need somebody else to make you better? Not really. It's your own inner spirit. It's your own self, what you believe in.
Especially at the grassroots level, when you've just started off. Yeah, it's just you. It's just you and what you're watching and observing and soaking in from the environment.
And I think that's it. You've hit the nail on the head. It's soaking it in. It's absorbing it. It's being in front of that TV and learning off the TV. It's really learning. And don't forget, we had a black and white TV back then. So it's really learning off that, you know, and listening to commentators, you know, which we'll get to down the line. And, you know, for me, it was exciting. It was give me the ball and let's see what I can do with it. Sure. You know, because I want to see what the players who I've looked up to, what they can do. Can I bring it to myself? And, you know, I didn't have no formal education on coaching. Nobody coached me, honestly. Nobody gave me any ideas. I brought the ideas to myself. I was very, I had that imagination. It's like drawing a house. When your parents said to you, draw your house. And you might have been living in a small apartment, but you draw this big, wonderful house, wouldn't you? You know, you put mountains behind it, you put trees in there. I was a bit like that with the football. You know, I had this imagination that if I'm on my own, I had players around me. Yeah. You know, if I'm kicking the ball against the wall, I had to make sure that I was kicking it in the right way, the right angle, because it would come off the wall. There was always a defender in there. And that's what brought me the love of football. And it wasn't about trophies. It wasn't about winning. It was just about winning within myself and finding that winning within myself. You know, could I chip a ball? Finding that winning. Could I curve a ball? Finding that winning. Could I pass the ball correctly? Finding that winning. Yeah. You know, could I take the ball around people? That was winning. That's called winning within the games. And that's what I found myself doing.
Fascinating, Terry. And I've picked up a few things from what you've said. And the first thing I picked up is your connection with the streets and how, and that's where your beginnings were. That's where you started off with. And I've actually seen this at the league as well, you know, where we have a few teams who do come from challenging backgrounds as well. And I saw you interacting with them specifically. They weren't your teams, they weren't your players, but then I could see that connection instantly because, you know, you would speak to them, you would motivate them, whether they won or they lost, you would speak to them. So I really do resonate with that as well. I've seen you.
I think in the game of football, everybody's a winner. Somebody's got to lose. We understand that, but you know, for me, is finding winning within the game, especially when you're working with the younger students. You know, and you can have fun, but you've got to have a love for the sport. You've got to have that love. You've got to have that respect for it. And somewheres along the lines, we've got to bring that back. Yeah, we can have fun, but you've got to find that love for the sport. You've got to really, and I found my love for the sport, and nobody really knew I played football when I was younger. Obviously, the PE teacher at school, my local club, who just come round and says, listen, do you want to play for the local club? Yes. Yeah. But I had that ambition. I had that drive and ambition of, one day, can I play in a cup final? One day, can I play in a World Cup and represent my country? One day, can I be on TV? You know, it wasn't about the money. It was about that drive and that passion and the pure love for football, because it's a beautiful game. I don't care where it's played, whether it's played in Goa, Kerala, the North East, you know, in Bengaluru, whether it's played on concrete, whether it's played on grass, turf, whether it's sand pitches. It's still a beautiful game to watch, you know. And it's the joy and the love. You've got to have that love for it. You've got to have the love for it. And when I was growing up, I had that love for it. I had that affiliation with it. I had that respect for it. I had the respect for my teammates. And nobody really knew I played football in my family. Only me, you know, my brother really knew, and that was every now and again.
A silent assassin, almost.
Well, yeah, you could basically say that, but I was a quiet lad. I didn't boast about anything. I didn't know how good I was. I never got evaluated. Nobody evaluated me from 1 to 10 and all that lot. You know, it was the eyes. If you was exciting and you had a love for the ball, you know, we talk about Diego Maradona with the ball, how we had that love and that feeling for the ball. You know, and that's what you've got to have.
Nice. So Terry, in our the theme of our podcast is, you know, talent development, and who we specifically target, it's the coaches, the parents, and the little players who actually play in our leagues, or the ones around the country who watch our leagues on social media and they want to be a part of it as well. You know, and it's about inspiring them, it's about educating them, creating awareness, right? So with every guest that comes onto the show, my first question to them is always, what is talent development for them, right? If I say the two words, talent development, it's very broad, but what does it mean to you?
Well, there's a buzzword going round at the moment, talent development, and we are developing. What does development mean? You know, is it developing them technically, tactically, socially, physically? And I use that as my platform, you know, and when you're working with, it could be 3-year-olds up to open age, developing the mind to fall in love with the sport. That's number one. Developing the personalities, you know, we look at the social corner, you know, developing friendships, developing communication, you know, this is all part of developing. It's not just about developing to be able to kick the ball from, you know, A to B. There's a lot what goes into it. And I think the more people what realise that, the better we will become. Because at the end of the day, we're human beings, you know, and our hands we use all the time. The feet and the coordination, it's very, very difficult. So it's time and patience. And it is patience. And developing for me is about patience. It's about time. It's about the fun aspect. It's about giving the love to the younger ones to be able to try and do something what they've probably never done before. And for me, it's about that patience. Remember what I said earlier on? Watching TV, going out there for hours and hours and hours. Do the children really do that this day and age? Depending where they are. If they're in a football school, if they're in a community project, if they're in a football club where it's a residential, you know, there's all different verticals there. So, you know, the students will get more hours than some. But what about the students who get 2 days a week and maybe play in the DPDL leagues? What about them? All right then, so we have to give them more focus, you know, because they come for different reasons. Some come because they want to have fun. Some come because they love the game, you know, 1 or 2. Yeah. Some come because a little bit of parents, you know, want to do a little bit of shopping, so we'll put them down there. Some come because they want to make friends, you know. So when we're talking about the development of football, like I said, 4 corners is always key. Yeah. But then as coaches, how do you put them 4 corners into place? What type of program do you have for your children? Like I said, you've all got all different levels, you know. Correct. The lower levels, the fundamentals, isn't it? It's about having that real fun and grasping that you know, love for the football. I always say love for the football because that's what it's about. And then you're going up the ranks, you know, learning to learn, learning to compete at the eye, learning to win. You know, you've got all these little verticals and all. Sure. But development, that buzzword of development is key. Do you have, you know, a program set in place? You know, what is your program? What's your cycles? Is it a 6 weeks program? Is it an 8 week program? Is it a 10-week program? Don't forget, I never had no program when I was younger. I just played on the streets. So some it works, some it doesn't work. But I think now the modern way of teaching now, you must have a program. The coaches must have something to go along. How do we know if the children are developed? How do we gauge that child? You know, how do we gauge that child who's probably at the lower, medium and high? How do we bring the talented one better? How do we get the medium boy or girl up to being talented? And how do we get the low ones up there? How do we do that? You know, what gauges us to do that? Is it 1 to 10? Is it 1 to 5? Or is it speaking to the child themselves and seeing how they're doing? What's making them buzz? How are they going to get better? So, all right, coming from the coaches, but surely we have to ask the student themselves and all. And I think that's talent development, socially, physically, technically and tactically. I don't worry about tactically too much with the younger kids. For me, remember what I said, technically is key. Work on the techniques, work on the ball handling, high balls, low balls, twisting, turning, running with the ball, not being afraid to lose the ball. I think there's too much at this present time now where we're asking younger teams and younger players to defend for their lives because we don't want to lose. You know, find winning within the game. You know, it's not about we all want to lose. We've got that instinct of us wanting to win. But, you know, we can't win everything. So educate the players and finding winning within the games. And that's called development. You know, what am I doing wrong? What could I do right? You know, focusing on them, engaging with them, you know, having that little bit of interaction with them, getting to know the players, you know. You get to know the players, you get to know the weaknesses and strengths of the players. But they've got to know the weaknesses and strengths and all. You know, that's talent development, you know, and it's an old spectrum. So for me, it's really that one-on-one situation and all. You've got to learn them one-on-one. It's not just about collectively or in your units. One-on-one, that's how you look. It's like going to school. It's going to school and having, you probably, when you was young, you probably had extra tuition because you probably wasn't too good at that. I'm a big believer in one-to-one interaction with the players. I think it's a big...
And every player is different as well. You know, the way you interact with one, it's not probably going to work with another one. But again, just getting that communication going is the very first step.
See, if you look at it socially, we look in the social corner. You know, if I've got 12 players, they're going to look at me like 12 different fathers, okay? If I've got a female, they're going to look at the female as 12 different mothers. And that's what it's about. It's having that respect for the students and all. It can't all be coach-led. You've got to have that respect from you. You've got to know what that student's looking for. You've got to know why the student's here. You've got to know why the students want what they want to get out of it. You know, if we see little steps, we know they're getting better. You know, it's not going to all come together. Like we talk about, you know, coaching hours, 10,000, you know, coaching hours. We need 10,000 coaching hours. Do we really need it?
It's actually been dismantled quite a few times. You know, this theory of 10,000 hours.
Do we really need it? I believe it's up to the individual. It's up to the individual. Some are talented than others. Some are born talented than others. Whether it's reading, writing, playing music, playing a sport, we've all got different talents, and it's bringing that talent out. You know, and really looking at that individual and saying, you've got a talent. Let's see if we can use that talent, you know. And that talent could be in anything. It doesn't have to be in football. It could be a pianist. He doesn't know.
Any skill.
It could be any skill. But I think that's development for me is getting to know the individuals and learning the individuals and having the patience to learn the individual and not finding a quick fix. Not finding a quick fix.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. So, absolutely, Terry. I think your version of development, it's fascinating really, because I think what you're focusing on is that one-on-one interaction with the child. I think that's something I got out of this, and I think a lot of coaches who are listening to this will pick this out as well. I think these are, little things that they can use in their setups, in their grassroots environments as well.
You've got to know. You've got to know the environment. You've got to know the environment you're working in. There's different environments, isn't there?
Yeah.
You've got your golden years, 8 to 12 years of age, and then you've got the pyramid goes up, and then you've got your young. You've got to find what you love. I find coaches popping from one to the other. From the golden years, then they're popping up to the open age, and then they're popping back down. You've got to find your niche.
Correct.
And I think if you find your niche, you'll develop even more. But don't forget, you've got to develop not just a person, you've got to develop the game. You've got to develop the other people who are around them. So when people say, oh, we're developing, I'd love to know how they're developing. We can put programs on, but are the coaches developing that, which we'll come to, or is that individual developing from that? How do we know the individual's developing from that? Yeah. I never had no form of coaching until I was 14 years of age when I was at Leeds United. Yeah. I developed myself. I developed my mind of what I wanted to do and what I wanted to get out of it. Some children are not like that. They just want to come in and have fun. So you've got to find out the ones who want to have fun. You can't be too hard on them. You've got to be a little bit lenient with them. You've got to. Then the serious one who really wants to be serious, you've got to push him a little bit more. You've got to challenge them and all. You've got to challenge your students. Challenge them to be better. Give them little challenges to make them better.
Absolutely. And you mentioned Leeds United, and I think this is something I think all the listeners would want to know. That's, I think, the first time you were formally introduced to coaching, right? That you had a coach who was now probably putting you in training sessions, giving you objectives. And from there onwards, to make it professional, I'm sure a lot of your peers in Leeds United didn't make it, but then you did, right? So I think for a young player today who's listening onto this podcast as well, what are some of the things, can you describe those experiences the first time at Leeds United? What were the difficulties you faced mentally, socially, physically as well? And what really got you through this? Like, you actually made it.
Well, if we take the four corners as we talk about, and I do talk about because it really interests me, and I've spoke to a lot of professors and professionals and professional coaches all over the world. One being John Erdman, who I was in New Zealand with. He took Canada to the World Cup. Fantastic insight, fantastic mind for a young boy. But for me, you see, it was, and I say that love. Didn't get no formal coaching. We had the PE teacher, we had the local coach, but they turn around and says, if you're a good player, you can play. Go on and play. You don't need, go on and play. Be excited. Go on and learn. Make mistakes. We never got scolded for making mistakes, in the younger ages, because we had nobody to scold us. We just went out there and played. Yeah. But once you start going now into that, okay, in a minute, I'm going on tryouts. I'm going for trials for me, my state team. I'm going trials for my city team. Now you start seeing, hang on a minute, now this is a lot different now from just playing regular community football. Sure. You're coming now to that stage where you're thinking, now it's getting a little bit harder, so I need to be that much better. And I remember going for my first tryout at Manchester City. And my first shirt was a Manchester City shirt. Now, living in Salford, not a lot of people had a Manchester City shirt. Yeah. That was probably because I was really fast, running away from all the Manchester United fans all the time. But I had this blue, and it was my first jersey I had, and my first pair of football boots. I'll show you one day. Mm-hmm. And I thought to myself, now I've got a kit. Now my first trial was at Manchester City. And I'm not the biggest boy, and I'm coming onto this field and I'm seeing Alex Williams, who used to play for Manchester City, and I'm thinking, these guys are massive compared to what I'm playing against. I'm thinking, well, now, technically, I have to be up there. Yeah. Forget tactically, that doesn't interest me tactically. Sure. Socially, I'm a quiet lad anyway. I'll learn. Physically, I can run and I'm quick. So I've got 2 little blocks there. I know I can get through on. I'm okay. I can compete. Yeah. Okay then. So I remember having my first tryout, and I'm thinking these lads come out. They had thighs like tree trunks. They had all their oil on, and I'm thinking, my word, I'm not going to be able to do this. But I had that inner spirit because I'd worked on the streets. I'd learned off the TV, and my mental capacity and the social condoms, I can compete with you guys. So I remember competing, and I remember a coach saying, I'd taken the ball, driving the ball up the field, and I lost it, but I didn't run back. And he turned around to me and said, little Mr. Phelan, wonderful going with the ball, and you're exciting, but you also have to run back. Oh, okay then. Now the tactical implements was coming in. I have to run back, I have to work hard, I have to think about, the fitness side of it. And that stuck in my mind ever since. But my first tryout was with Manchester City, and it's a lovely story. I could have signed for Manchester City as a 12-year-old, 4-year contract. I declined it. I declined Manchester United, Liverpool, Everton, Tottenham, Oldham, all these wonderful little clubs. But for me, it was going to Leeds United, moving away from home, which was going to be an experience. Leeds United was a club in transition. It was in the old second division. They had the wonderful coaches there, Keith Mincher, Pete Gumby. They had the older players, Alan Clark come to me home. Eddie Gray was playing then, Frank Gray. World superstars within their rights. World Cups they've been to, play for the countries. And I'm thinking, Man City, First Division, buying players for £1 million back then. Am I really going to get a chance? Now, I didn't have a lot of guidance. It was the guidance of the technical committee at Leeds United and the chief scout, Terry. We believe in the next 4 to 5 years you'll play for the first team. Come to us. And I says, okay then, I'm leaving home, I'm leaving all my friends, I want to be professional, I'm going to go to Leeds United. My coaching started then, I started getting introduced to coaching at 14 years of age. I'm on about coaching where you've got to be aware. But what I used to do, I used to go out on my own, and I used to coach myself, do shadow play myself, and using that imagination which you hit on before. Coaches, Terry, go out there. They didn't overcoach you because you was decent players. They didn't overcoach you. They never knocked it out of you. They were strict, but they knew the players they was having. They had that little sense of ability and that sense of technical ability, tactical ability, and they had that freedom of expression. We had that freedom to dribble. Why are we stopping people from dribbling when we need dribblers? Because we need ball carriers. Why do I hear coaches saying, don't dribble past the ball? Why do I hear that all the time, and I'm thinking, but we need dribblers, we need ball carriers, no matter where they dribble. And from the coaches, it was all about expressing yourself. Express yourself. Have the courage to make mistakes. Have the courage to get better. And that's what we was given at Leeds United, and especially off somebody called Keith Mincher, who was 10 years away ahead of anybody else. Yeah. We used to do simple things. Simple things. We didn't have 1 million cones down to make the field look great, like an airway. We used a runway, sorry. We used to do simple things. There's a ball. There's an area. If you're doing your ball manipulation, go in there and do your ball manipulation. If you're doing high balls, low balls, it was so simple, but it was an effective way of teaching, and we enjoyed it. But when I was having my trials for Leeds, it was 11v11 on Ellen Road. And I remember picking the ball up just over the halfway line, and there was round about 2,000 or 3,000 people watching, kids from all over England. And I picked the ball up, and I thought, Terry, come on then, let them show them what you can do. And this is honest, no ego here or anything. And I picked the ball up and I thought, well, just have a go, just dribble and have a go. And, knocked the ball and it went in the top corner. And I thought, that's what it's all about, Terry, being exciting with the ball. Yeah. And if you watch the Manchester City goal I scored against Tottenham.
That's your famous goal, you've seen that.
It was something like that,
Same
but
thing.
on the other side of the halfway line. And
Correct.
it's about being exciting and not killing the self-esteem and motivation of the students, whether they're younger, middle or older. Keeping them active, having that element of fun with them and all, but the love. So, yeah, and then we started training with other lads, and you get better because you've got the best players around you now. You're playing against the best teams. You only get better if you've got the better players with you, and it's best with best, best against best. Otherwise, it's not, otherwise you're not gonna progress. And it was brilliant, you know. You're playing against your Paul Gascoignes at Newcastle. You're playing against the Manchester Uniteds and your Mark Hughes's in the youth teams. Surely you're getting better. But I used to relish the challenge, and it was great. The coaching was simple, but it was effective, you know.
Right.
We didn't have no TV analysts. We didn't have no video analysts. We didn't have all that then.
Yeah.
You know, we just had, you go out there, use your imagination and play and be exciting.
Correct. I can see a lot of time being spent with yourself as well on the ball, doing extra work outside of the coaching hours. That's something I'm picking up, and you've mentioned this a few times, and this is I think kids today should also be picking this up.
Yeah, I mean, we say that, but don't forget society's changed from that when I was a young boy.
Yeah.
We didn't have the finer things what the younger children have got now. You know, if you go in and maybe to the poorer areas, they'll have a ball at the feet all the time. You go to somewhere like Kerala, you know, Goa, you know, them hotbeds, the northeast, they'll have a ball because maybe they haven't got, they're not fortunate enough to maybe have a PlayStation at home and, you know, these video rooms. You know, the only thing they've got is a football to play with their friends and it's a way of communicating and all, believe it. But I do believe if you want to get better at anything, put the hours in.
Correct.
Put the hours in, and if you put the hours in, and we talk about hard work before anything else, then you've got to start. But you've got to love the game.
Sure.
You've got to love the game if you want to go to the next level.
Yeah.
If you don't want to go to the next level, then you're playing for fun. You're playing just to come and meet friends and have a little bit of fun and learn little tidbits.
Yeah.
But
which is good. But
which is good.
If you want to make it to,
if you want to make it to the next level and go up that pyramid, you've got to work as hard as the next person. I always had this thing in me: never be outworked on a football field, or never be outworked in training.
Yeah.
So the coaching was there, but you have to bring yourself along and all. Nobody can help you, only yourself.
Sure, absolutely. Connecting this back to, you know, coach education now in India, right? Because you mentioned about coaches, the ones that you interacted with were simple, but they were effective. That's what you said. And you know, connecting this to your experiences in India, I think that's a whole story in itself. I'd love to know how you came to India the first time, and what attracted you here. But then, once you were here, and you've had so many experiences, you know, working as an assistant at Kerala Blasters, then taking over as the head coach there, working at South United, up north as well. You've travelled. You know, you've had a lot of experiences in Indian football. You know, what according to you are the gaps that coaches or coach education system in India is facing today?
Well, first and foremost, to your question, again, I'll go back to you have to love the game. If you're a coach, you have to love it. You can have fun, but you need to love that game. You need to educate yourself all the time. You know, read up on things, you know, watch podcasts, listen to some of the best youth coaches or senior coaches or foundation coaches in the world. Listen to them, see what they're thinking. But the game's a simple game. Why? It's only us coaches, what complicate it. You know, in the younger ones, it's only us what complicate, because that winning factor comes out. We all want to win. There's no. I'm not saying we don't want to win.
Sure.
But, you know, if coaches want to get better, they have to learn more. You never stop learning. Mourinho never stops learning. When Alex Ferguson never stopped learning. Klopp, they never stop learning. Now, a youth coach is completely different from up there, but listen to the best youth coaches at your Chelseas, at your Manchester United, at your Real Madrid. Listen to them, see what they do. Obviously, their players are a little bit different. what would I say? The atmosphere is different in these countries, you know. India's relatively new now in this area. And when I say relatively new, I'm at about 40 years. Don't forget, Europe, it's 150, 200 years. And coaches keep asking me, Terry, what's the difference between Europe and India? I said, 200 years. 200 years.
It's true.
You walk into Burnley, it's 150, 180 years old. So they've already got that culture built in. They've already got that philosophy, that culture's built into them. India's getting better. I've worked with some wonderful coaches who I've educated, who've gone on to bigger and better things. From Kerala, you know, some of them are working in the ISL now. Some of them are working at elite academies now, which is brilliant to see that they've really progressed. They've seen something. Look, this is the way to do things, but put your own niche on it and all. Put your own niche on it. Put your own little bit on it. You know, you can look at books, you can read books, you can get sessions out of books, but you have to have that little bit of excitement in there as a coach. You know, and I've seen a lot of the coaches who I've been with, you know, been really exciting in the roles they're doing now. I've been in India. I first come to India 2010, and I was at Sesagore as a chief mentor. The Indian people are very emotional people, you know, and I learnt that you've got to do things slowly. If you go in there and throw them in the deep end, it's not going to work. They want to learn, but you've got to learn them in the right way. You've got to do things slow, like we're talking about, and because they want to learn. They want to learn what the rest of the world's doing. They've got more now attention on football. You've got more scope to learn. You've got, you know, you've got podcasts to learn off. Like I said, you've got computers now. You can go anywhere on Google and find anything. You've got football all around you now on your phones, on TV. You've got these different platforms. For me, the coach education in India is getting a lot better. I think coaches are more open now to different concepts. Do you want to learn? Do you want to get better? Do you want to go to the next level? Do you want to compete with the Europeans and the rest of the world, which I think is absolutely fantastic. You asked me why I'm here. My dream is, can I get them group of coaches or them group of players over there learning a little bit more? The All Indian Football Federation now are coming into a different way of thinking. Federations have to inline themselves now, you know, get more educators in the federations to go out to the smaller places. India's a big place. United States of America's a big place. You know, Europe's a big place. Australia's a big place. We've got big countries, but it's how we knit, the education to the coaches. Some coaches don't want to be educated, but that's okay. They'll find a niche where they want to be. But if you're going to be in that 8 to 12-year-old bracket, the golden years, you've got to know an awful lot about the 8 to 12-year-olds. You have to.
It's a different skill set altogether to be coaching 8 to 10-year-olds. It's a different, I mean, pedagogy. It's completely different when you're working with, let's say, even 16 to 18-year-olds. And you've got to have that knack. It's a different methodology altogether. You know, if you ask anybody who's got children, and you ask the coaches who've got children, you treat them children who you're working with just like you treat your own children. There's no different. Why shout at them? Why scream at them? You know, you don't get the best out of them. You know, educate them. You know, but the education now which is going into coaches in India is getting better. The All Indian Football Federation, don't forget, it is a big country. You know, they are starting to get there now, and I've seen it grow. I've seen infrastructures grow. See what we've got down there at South United Football Club. Sure. Probably the best infrastructure in India, if I'm honest. You know, right in the heart of Bengaluru for the community. But, you know, coach education is getting better in India. I see it, you know, every year. I see young coaches wanting to coach. You know, I see them wanting to do the licenses. They're fighting to do the licenses, you know. So we need more coach educators out there, more development managers in the federations, development managers, coach educators in there, so then they can go out, you know, they can go out and you know,
give what they've learned to the coaches.
Sure. I've actually seen this in Europe where let's say once you've completed your C license or your B license, there is a specialized stream that kind of bifurcates there. You know, you go into your UEFA A's, which is specifically for the professional football, and UEFA A's, which is specifically for youth football. You know, do you think something of that sort would work in India, or it's too premature for that? Because we need better youth coaches to produce better, you know, footballers for the first teams. They need to be better.
I think
grassroots.
you've hit the nail on the head. The coach has got to find his niche. Remember what I said earlier on, his niche, what he wants to do. He's got to find that niche. Does he want to work with, you know, 3 to 8 year olds? Does he want to work in that corner? 8 to 12 year olds? Does he want to work with 13 to 16 year olds? You know, 17 to 21 year olds? You know, he's got to find that niche. I don't believe jumping from one to the other, to the other, to the other. I don't believe that's education. I believe, you know, you've got to find where you want to be and do it for the love and all. You get paid well. In youth football, like you says, you look at Iceland, what Iceland have done in world football. Their best B licensed coaches coach at the bottom first. They learn the trade at the bottom.
Yep.
If you learn and you've got your best coaches at the bottom, surely the players are going to be better. Better coaches, better players, depending which section you're on. You know, if you're at that professional club, elite academies, yeah. If you're in your communities now, in England, a lot of coaches are in the communities, your local football clubs, your B licensed coaches, you know, your youth coaches are in there, good coaches, so they're lending that, getting the children ready maybe to go into the professional ranks, i.e. your category 1, category 2, category 3 clubs and you know, the academies. But I do think now is, yeah, you're right, we do have little pathways. You don't have to do your A licence if you don't want to do your A licence. You know, you can do your B licence and be happy there. You can do your youth modules, level 1, level 2, and advanced youth modules, and that covers, you know, that 8 to 18 year olds, you know, 21 year olds. If you want to go on and go and do your, you know, your A licence, then you can go on and do your A licence, and then you're going on to bigger and better things. If you want to do your pro licence now, you're catapulting yourself. Your pro licence is for how to run the club, what do you know about the club. We all know that. But I think education and doing your licences, does that mean you're a better coach because you do your licences?
Not necessarily, right?
But you need it now. You need it. We all need them. We all need these licences. Because the first thing anybody asks you, have you got a licence? You know, what type of licence you got will determine.
You definitely need it.
Yeah.
Of course, let's say on the professional side, on getting a job.
But some coaches,
It doesn't define.
Some coaches have got 20, 30 years of experience.
Yeah.
Okay then. You've got some chaps who are fresh out of university with no experience in the football world, but doing the licences. So it comes hand in hand. I believe, get as much education as you can. I'm 55 years of age. You know, I sit in the office, I educate myself all the time because I'm in and around, educate myself how parents are thinking, how the coaches are thinking. But I think with the coaches now, the coaches are definitely getting better in India. I'd love to see Indian coaches taking a more better role in the ISL and all, leading the ISL teams. I'm still waiting for that to happen. I think we have got coaches who can do that. We have got pro licensed coaches who can do that. But we have to believe in them and all. The coaches who I've coached, you know, my first thing is learning about their culture, learning about the families, learning about the brothers, the sisters, learning about where they've come from, learning about what they've done, learning about why they've come into coaching, what they get out of coaching. You know, just because you've played international football, it doesn't mean you're going to be a good coach. Just because you haven't played football, it doesn't mean you're going to be a good coach. It's hand in hand. You have to learn. And I've had some wonderful coaches. Like I said, who's gone on to wonderful ISL, the 21s maybe, or the B teams. They're running their own academies now. And they're lending that philosophy on. But for me, I think India's it's getting their infrastructure, The coach education is getting there a lot now. Obviously, we've got tournaments now. Obviously, your wonderful tournament, what you're running yourself, is lending to them younger coaches now to be able to facilitate them younger students and get the younger coaches now thinking, well, maybe this is not as easy as it is. You know, you have to strategize a little bit. You have to have that element of professionalism behind them, you know, educating them and putting an arm around them when things are not going too bad. Because, you know, it's youth football. And anything happens, that's when it's youth football. The ball changes hands so many times, and then you might have one lad who may be 4 times bigger than his player. Yeah. But I always say to my coaches, if we learn him technically, the time he's that size, he will be better. Because obviously physicality comes into it an awful lot. And yeah, you listen, it's not taking the winning mentality away from the students or the coaches. Yeah. But it's finding them winnings within the games, and we've said it multiple times in the show, and developing the players to be able to go on. I think parents play a big part in it and all. I try and say to our parents, don't goad the kids from the sideline. Let them play, let them be exciting. It's their day. Same for the coaches. It's the players' day. You've done all your work during the week. Let's see if they can implement it now at the end. But that takes time. Yeah. You know. A tree doesn't grow in one day. It takes time for it to blossom and mature. And that's what you've got to do with the students. You've got to do that with the coaches. But the parents need to know. Now, in India, it's getting, we talk about academics and really academic focus. I think it's the landscape's changing just a little bit. The younger parents are coming into it now. The younger parents want their health and fitness and the well-being for the children. We've just come out of COVID. The parents are paramount to what we do, whether it's at SUFC, whether it's in clubs, whether it's in tournaments. The parents, without parents, we don't have no students. But then it's learning the parents and a code of conduct, how to act on the sideline. I've been all over the world, travelled all over the world, and recently I had a parent, was very rude, and we had to sit the parent down and turn around and say, look, let's have a little bit of fairness in this. It's not just about your son, it's about a collective of sons and daughters and all. Yep. But take nothing away from the parents. The parents work hard. The parents put petrol in the cars. The parents, are so professional of trying to get the kids there, because life's fast now. And after coming out of COVID, it's taken another step. People want to get back to their old ways a little bit. But we talk to our parents. At the end of a training session, I'll be at the bottom of the pitch. Once the parents come along, any problems, any questions, listen, you've got a game at the weekend, go and enjoy it. Feel free. Go and do a bit of shopping if you don't want to watch. Feel free yourselves. And I think the parents can't get too uptight. It's youth football, it's kiddie football. You can't get too uptight. There's no Ronaldos, there's no Messis at this age. There is none. And I think when the parents start getting away from that and just going, relaxing, watching the child, chatting to other parents, getting that community focus together, fantastic.
Absolutely. And the reason I was asking about, where I saw that coach getting slightly, demotivated because of the results and things, I think in that particular environment, you can see he is the owner of the academy. He is the coach. He's the owner, and the only person he's responsible for, or he's obligated to respond to, is the parents who are actually sending the kids to his academy. Yeah. So of course there is a bit of pressure from there. But then, as we were discussing off camera as well, that I think these coaches, all they have to do is get the parents on their side, and it has to be done maybe pre-season. Just set the standards with them that this is what our objectives are. Don't coach the kids from the sidelines. I in fact saw one of the teams at DPDL, and this was excellent when I saw the coach doing this. These were under 7s, right? These were 6-year-olds playing in there for the first time. And before the game started, he just got them all together. He said, listen, only listen to me, right? Any instruction, just listen to me. Don't listen to anyone, even if it's your parents, your own mom or dad. or anyone else's parent there. Don't listen to them. It's only me who's giving the instruction. He set the standard clear with a 6-year-old right then and there.
Yeah. I think the good thing with me when I was growing up, nobody ever come and watch me. I was allowed to play. And one uncle come and watch me. Obviously, my mother brought 5 of us up, you know, on her own. So there was no peer pressure. I was allowed to just let the air down and run in the fresh air and learn what I've learned just by myself or picking bits up. I think that's what we've got to do with the students. We've got to leave them. It's their day, you know. We've got to speak to the parents early doors before any start of the season, get them in maybe an AV room, tell them about the programme, where they're going with the programme, how many tournaments or leagues we're going to go into, what's the expectation coming out there, you know. You know, but we're looking at the growth of the student as well as the growth of the trophy. It's the growth of the student we're looking at, and we're trying to get their sons and daughters along the different pathways, maybe to be able to become professional footballers or just fall in love with it. We don't want to send students away from the game. We want to keep them involved in the game, we want them to fall in love with the game. I think parents are very much important, and they're the key members of this. And we have to talk to the parents. We have to communicate with the parents. I do it. I communicate with our parents. In the first couple of games, they got a little bit animated. We sat down, we talked to them. Listen, put yourselves in their shoes. If somebody's shouting from outside the ground, what would it be like? You know, but you've got to do that in a nice way. You've got to do it in a humble way, in a nice way, so they understand, and not in a negative way. Because if you do it in a negative way, they take the sons and daughters away, and that's it. So we want to keep them involved in any sports, not just football, but any sports. And I would always say this: let the players play, let the students play, let your sons and daughters play with a smile on their face. Because if they don't, then they're going to fall out of love with the game. And the first person them students see is the coach.
Yeah.
And the last person they'll see is the coach if they leave. That coach has got to be perfect within all his ways a little bit, you know.
Absolutely.
And the parents, you know, you have to communicate with the parents. Don't leave the parents isolated. Communicate with them. If they've got a problem, come in, sit them down, listen to the parents. Because at the end of the day, they're valuable.
You know, one final question for you, Terry, and it's a slightly personal one. You know, what was your relationship like with your parents, especially when it came to football? I know you were, I think, like you said, just your uncle probably once in a while who came and saw you play. But what was your relationship in terms of, you know, were your mom and dad supportive? Were they just completely out of it?
Well, it's a good question, and I could probably go on for years and years, but really it was my mother brought 5 of us up on her own kind of thing. Couple of jobs she had, you know. We had aunties and uncles across the road like you do, but, you know, they never got involved. My mum never got involved. My mum only knew I played football when I was 13 years of age, when I went to a trophy night. And she turned around and went, "Oh, your name's being called up an awful lot, and you're getting a trophy here and a trophy there. What's going on?" I said, "Mum, you know, I do play football." You know, she went, "Oh, I didn't know." You know,
wow, okay.
I said, "For all the balls they had around the house and all that, you didn't know. What do you think I played tennis or something like that?" So I remember going out of after the function, and she got me, put her arm around me, and she whispered into my ear, and she said, "Terry, I think you should take this football up." And that's when scouts started coming to the house, and she was getting a box of chocolates and flowers. Then she realised that, hang on a minute, this could be a pathway and a career for you. She never stopped me. She never interfered. My brother never interfered. My uncles never interfered. Because when I used to play with my uncles, I used to take the ball around them anyway. So that was my way of getting back at them. But no, it was beautiful because I was allowed to just enjoy playing football. There was no pressure, you know. And when I went to Leeds United, it all really started from there. And you know, you're amongst the best players, and you've got to be the best. It's no use being the same. You've got to be better. And I say to our students, even to this day, be better than the next person to you. Never be outworked. And that was my philosophy, never be outworked, because I see my mother working hard to put food on the table.
Absolutely.
And my job was, as a footballer, was provide food, put food on the table. And that's basically it. And I didn't do too bad. Played in the FA Cup final. My first FA Cup final watch was 1976. I played in the World Cup. My first World Cup was 1978 World Cup. So dreams do come true, but you have to listen, you have to learn, you have to absorb, you have to trust yourself, you have to trust the people now, the coaches who you're working with. And it's about time nowadays. It's about giving the students time. It's about giving them time. We've got to get away with, he's not good enough, he's not good enough, he's not. It's up to us as coaches to make him good enough. At least give him the tools, then it's up to the student themselves.
Absolutely. I think, Terry, firstly, just want to thank you, for your time, giving us a lot of motivating, lines and stories as well, which really inspires all of us here. And I'm sure the listeners, in terms of, whether they're parents, whether they're coaches or players, I think there's something for everyone to take back from this episode. And I think we can do a part 2 to this as well at some point. I think because there's so much left to talk.
Yeah, it is. And for the coaches out there, don't stop learning. Don't worry about anything outside. You're on the sideline, keep educating, whether it's in training, whether it's in games, whether it's in leagues. Keep educating yourself, keep educating the students. That's what I would say. Keep learning the students, because at the end of the day, they're looking up to you.
Absolutely. All right. So, with that, we end the episode of the DPDL Talent Development Podcast. Terry, thank you so much for your time once again.
Thank you.
And we look forward to seeing you at the league with your teams once again and having a great season once again.
Thank you very much. It's been a great pleasure doing the show, and hopefully people are out there listening to it. Yes. And I don't bore them.
Absolutely not. Thank you, and see you next time.